All right. Okay, so it is 6 o'clock. We have we met in executive session, and we have already made the motion to return to open session. So the
Recording
first
in progress.
item on our agenda is review, discuss, act, recommendation to appoint Jeff Mello as building commissioner. So Jeff is here with us tonight, and we already discussed his appointment in executive session. We're very excited for you to join the town or continue with the town in your new capacity. And I think you're the perfect person for the job. So
Thank you.
Welcome. Anything that you'd like to say, Peter?
Ross is arguing. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm going to make a motion to approve Jeff Mello as the building commissioner.
I will step down in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Next, we have a recommendation to appoint Jeff Mello to the following offices: Zoning Enforcement Officer, Land Use Coordinator, Right to Know, Stormwater Committee, Alternate, Fire Station Building Committee, Agent to the Board of Selectmen, TIF Review Board Member, and Soil Conservation Committee, Alternate.
I'll make that motion, as you read.
All right, I'll step down in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, awesome.
You're getting name tag for each position now, Jeff.
You'll have to see the town clerk on Monday to get sworn in.
All right,
Yes.
thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
So next we have Mark Prochnick, Director of the Library of the Dayton Public Library, here to discuss the library page position. Hey, Mark.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Very good, thanks.
Nice.
Right. Hello. Yeah, so at your last meeting, you appointed Catherine Malinsky to the position of Technical Service Librarian. She was the page, and now that page position is vacated. We were going to talk about this at the last meeting, but I couldn't make it. And I'm not going to turn down a chance to come talk to you guys. So
Love it.
we had to put on this meeting instead. So here I am. And we trustees met and approved the position. They went on to HR, and I'm here to answer any questions. And hopefully we can post it and get the position filled.
Fantastic. I don't have any questions.
No, we've discussed it a few times and just ready to pull the plug and go. So,
That's what I'd like to hear.
Yes. So when will it be posted?
It could be as early as tomorrow, I believe. Yeah, as early as tomorrow. Yep.
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yep. And we'll start interviews and we'll get it filled and we'll get rolling.
Awesome. That's very exciting.
I'm excited too.
Well, with that said, I'll entertain a motion.
okay, motion to appoint the library page position and post the job description.
I will step down in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you very much. Good job.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Next, we have Taylor Perez she's the Director of Housing and Research to talk about the housing production plan. Hello.
You'll have to forgive me. My laptop has just decided to simply die right at the best time. So I have my notes on my phone. So if you see me looking down at it, that's what it is.
Perfect.
But good evening, folks. Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Taylor Perez. I'm the Director of Housing and Research at SERPED, the Regional Planning Agency. Joined by my colleague Robert Cabral, as the Assistant Comprehensive Planning Manager at SERPED. And we are here to chat about the housing production plan, which we recently brought to final draft form at the beginning of this year. We worked on it for about a year or so, probably from November of 2024 through the end of last year. We attended 2 tabling events. We conducted a community preferences survey that received about 200 responses. And I think the last time we spoke was almost a year ago to date, so it's nice to be back. And so really, I think what we're here to do tonight is just to talk through any questions you folks might have, talk about next steps, what it means to, finish a housing production plan, locally adopt it, get it approved, etc., if that's what you folks would like to do. I know we also received a memorandum from the planning board, so if you have any questions about the content in that, we're happy to talk through it. But really, I kind of wanted to leave it up to you folks to hear if you had questions, Ralph, if you had comments for us, etc., or any thoughts, or just kind of directionally where you wanted us to go tonight.
If I may I was just going to say, Jeff Cavallo is on coming in Zoom. I just want to reiterate, thank you for the work Serpent did on the housing production plan. The housing production plan is a critical plan each town must have per the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have it because it gives direction to the town as to how we want to see housing going, and also if anybody comes into town, any developers coming into town, they get a sense of where the town is and the direction the town wants to go in. Also, it does provide an adopted housing production plan, a certified housing production plan, does provide a safe harbor to the town, ensuring that the developers who do come in, you work with them and you work to get the project that is respectful to the town, works with the developers, and respectful to people who eventually live in there. So I looked over the housing production plan. It's a pretty good one. I know the planning board has provided comment. I don't know if this opportunity, if the board has any questions or if you want to have planning board. I know we have another member from the planning board here, but we do have the chair on.
I think it'd be beneficial just to have an overview of the highlights of the plan
Sure.
and your findings. That would be nice.
Yeah, so again, kind of scrolling through the plan on my phone, so apologies if I'm looking down. Ultimately, after again about a couple, solid months of engagement, I think a pretty good uptake on the survey. I know that was something that the planning board brought up and that we can talk in further details. Again, I think we got about 202 responses. Definitely a breadth of opinions on housing production in town, and not just production, but just policy in general, which we see in all of our communities. And what we've tried to do here is tease out what we think makes the most sense for the town and is actionable while still being, again, respectful of the feedback we received via the survey and via our tabling events. And so I'm kind of scrolling again through here, apologies. So again, ultimately, we start with data, and the kind of main conclusions that we found that we see in many of our communities throughout the Southeast is that Dayton's population is aging, that the population and the housing stock here have seen more growth, which is actually not so common in our region compared to other communities, that you folks have a high median income, and that your home sales have remained steady, although prices are increasing as they are kind of everywhere regionally and statewide. And so given that and the feedback we received from the survey, we ultimately came up with 2 goals and 4 strategies. The first goal was to create housing options and implement new programming to support vulnerable populations. And the second goal, which appears in almost every housing production plan that we write, is to continue to produce subsidized housing inventory eligible units to achieve the Commonwealth's required amount and support communities in need, which I know Ralph was just alluding to. It's that 10% number that folks are probably very familiar with as required under Chapter 40B and its regulations. And so ultimately, we recommended 4 strategies. The first was to review the town's comprehensive permit rules and regulations just to make sure that everything is up to date and that the procedures are, as you folks would like to see. The second strategy was to conduct additional public outreach to determine housing needs and preferences in town. This largely come from, the kind of, again, I alluded to earlier, the breadth of feedback we received on the survey. It was hard to, at least on our end, we attempted to do our best to thread the needle and draw some consensus and again, make some recommendations that we thought made the most sense. But there was certainly, there was a lot for us to work with in terms of what's going to make the most sense for Dayton. So we think just doing more public outreach and trying to get out to whether it's stakeholder interviews with folks at like the Council on Aging, for example, or whatever, to again further tease out what's going to make the most sense for town. The third strategy was to pursue funding and regulatory changes to support creating and preserving housing for vulnerable communities, including senior residents and veterans. And then the fourth strategy was to investigate opportunities for adaptive reuse to redevelop and or expand underutilized municipally owned land and buildings, something that is also almost cookie cutter in most of our housing production plans because it ties into that second goal regarding production. And so ultimately, again, 2 goals, 4 strategies. We wanted to keep it really simple and in terms of next steps, what we'd like to do is we, again, received the memorandum that I think you folks have on your desk tonight from the planning board. We are prepared to incorporate some of the feedback that we received there. And then ultimately it's, goes back to the planning board and to you folks to choose whether or not you'd like to locally adopt it. And then you essentially, if you choose to do so, you furnish that evidence in a letter to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, and then you can get it approved. And that kind of sets the stage for the next 5 years, where you now have an active housing production plan. And then, should you be producing SHI eligible units, I believe the 0.5% threshold is like 15 units or something. I know it's a smaller number, but again, it kind of leads into what Ralph was saying, where you could apply for certification, where you can get up to 2 years of safe harbor. So that in a nutshell is kind of the summary of what we've got going on. Do you have anything you want to add?
Sure. For those of you that have read through it, the one section I think I could add a little distillation to is there's that barrier section in the beginning.
Yes.
That is also mandated, regulatory mandate.
Mm-hmm.
So when we think about sort of planning analysis or architectural analysis or whatever way we describe that, is sort of like the barriers is just what is, it's what's there. We call it existing conditions analysis type of research. So when we say some of the things, maybe getting ahead a little bit of some of the planning board's comments here too, that, single family zoning is a barrier to producing more housing. It just kind of is. If it was zoned higher, you'd have more housing. We're not saying normatively what someone ought to do, but we are required to kind of mention those kinds of things. Open space is a barrier to more housing. This plan is specifically focused on housing, so we're talking about what barriers to housing are. Of course, a town like Dayton has to consider the breadth of sort of factors that make someone want to live here or make quality of life good here or protect the environment, all of those things. So that's really what that barriers represents. Is it's a part of it's in every plan. And to be honest, we usually do get a little pushback on it in every plan. So I usually try to address it right up front. So we have that barriers section. We have the analysis section of what we heard during outreach. We try to look at both of those and kind of listen to folks at meetings such as this, like the Board of Selectmen or the Planning Board, and recommendations people have, and distill all that. And that's where those recommendations, goals, and strategies really come from. So just to add a little bit, that one piece, the barriers. I know we tend to get a lot of questions on that.
Yeah.
It amazes me that we only have 200 responses, considering not that we get a lot of phone calls over it. I hear such strong opinions either way. I'm surprised more people were not more vocal to you, just in sheer numbers, not necessarily what they had to say. And I don't want to apologize for that. But
No, that's okay.
Considering even our town meetings, we don't have great attendance for the major decisions that are made at that meeting. Especially when you consider the adult population is what it is. The 8,000 obviously includes children. So the data that you have in here was just mostly research from your end, not a lot there's no data from the opinions.
No, so I mean, there definitely was, I think, and I appreciate the apology, but you really don't have to, because this is probably one of the best in terms of like responses survey that we have done for any of our communities with a housing production plan. I know.
It's not a bad rate of response
It's
compared
really,
to the population of the town.
Yeah, so
Okay. Yeah.
we, I know this again, this is kind of getting into the memorandum from the planning board, but we were looking at the sample size for a confidence interval of 95%. I think it was, maybe 360 responses. And so we're closer to 85%. So again, like we feel that in terms of, again, the sheer number, the volume of responses was pretty good. We, today as we were discussing before we came tonight, it could be more, we were saying, a coverage issue where, we know that the survey made its way onto social media, for example, and, you just don't know exactly what kind of subset or, either, voting population or whoever is taking it. Like, we struggle with this almost on every survey, where we're just constantly trying to navigate getting a very representative population, getting enough survey responses, and then, working with it, again, in a way that we feel is meaningful. And so really, I actually think that a lot of the survey feedback kind of fueled this, because even though it was such a, again, it might seem like a small subset, they were very robust. There's a lot of information actually within that survey, which is why we tried to lean more programmatic in terms of like, housing, focusing on like stability and affordability for housing, which is why I think one of the recommendations that the planning board highlighted was the municipal affordable housing trust under that third strategy, trying to focus again on things that are maybe a little bit more bite-sized, easier to kind of, move the needle on without trying to propose some dramatic change, which it was very clear, like through the survey responses, that was, there was no appetite for that. And we recognize that. And it's, Dayton is not the only community that has those sentiments. So we're pretty familiar with, I think, working in situations like that. And I do think that the survey, again, in my opinion, seeing how many surveys go out and kind of the uptake being really hard to kind of get people to take surveys, I was happy with 202.
Okay,
So
great. Well, if
personally,
you're happy then, that's
Statistically significant number.
yeah.
And to hone in on that one word Taylor used, coverage, is sort of a statistical word we use when we look at, sorry.
No,
can't
yeah,
hear me.
go for it. Share the bench.
That specifically means, is the subset of the population that answered the survey representative of what we would call like a typical Dayton resident, or the breadth of
Right.
residents in Dayton? So I would say if there's potentially a weakness in this, and again, just following up what you said, Taylor, it might be that people who take the survey online, because we know a lot of people found it online or found it from Facebook groups, there's one of two possibilities, I suppose, that even though it's a subset, it completely reflects the broader consensus in Dayton, which you could, if you were to ask every single person in town, you'd get the same answers. Or that if you were to ask every person in town, we would find that there were divergences across certain, reasons. We could maybe age group or length of time someone's lived in town or something like that. So coverage is, if we were to kind of nitpick where some of that data might, again, if we were to like hypothetically census everyone in the town might be different, I would say coverage is probably, and how do you address that? I mean, everything has trade-offs, but for example, maybe in the future, if we did something in Dayton, we would send a flyer out with a tax bill that says, hey, check this out if you want to. That way, you're at least reaching every homeowner. And in a community like Dayton, where most people do own their homes, that is a large portion of the town. So there are different ways we could approach it, and then, of course, we do our best with what we've got as a regional planning agency. But, big time pollsters, that's why they phone and send mail and do focus groups and 8,000 things. So but we could pick and choose a couple of these differently next time based off what we want in this plan.
not to go way off subject, but how many communities in Massachusetts have housing plans? Do you know offhand?
I don't
Many.
know. Yeah, many. I would
Obviously,
say,
more do than don't.
I would say probably, yeah. I would
think so.
I would guess at least half, if not
Okay.
maybe 2/3. But I mean, how many are actually in date? It might be closer to half or so, but there are. I mean, at least in our region alone, I would say it's probably 2/3.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you could even distill it a little further into communities that are smaller communities such as Dayton versus larger communities, and those that are at the 10% threshold
Right.
versus those that aren't. Some may say,
Right.
oh, we're at the 10%
We're
threshold.
not going to do it.
And they don't use
Our
it.
housing planning is going the way we want it to. We don't need
Right.
to do another one. And
Yeah.
So,
Right.
so within that, but I'd say, in the Serpent region,
Yeah.
many of our communities pursue it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So somebody reaches a 10% and they just blow off a housing plan?
Some people do.
Depends. Yeah, it depends.
Yeah.
We've worked with communities who've been at either at 10% or near it and still opted to, either write or finalize a plan because it can queue up, say for example, we were near the 2020 census and then we're approaching the 2030 census where those SHI threshold numbers get updated. Sometimes it can be nice either to carry over that threshold or, for example, just to know in advance as that new date approaches where those numbers will be updated. Like we set this guiding document, 5 years ago, and 3 of the 5 things we recommended have been done or not. But I would say it's pretty community specific whether or not they want to. But for those who at least are under 10%, we, Serpent, I think, usually recommend to have one. We just think it's a beneficial document, but of course, it's up to the community is what they want.
And some of those communities, I think if they're in the room, their response would be, we plan the housing, we're executing it, it's going well. I think
Right.
that would be how they would.
Why
Right.
interfere?
Why interfere
Okay.
with it. But yeah, but
Depends.
and some of them, even with the 10%, many communities will say, well, we do want to state our goals
Right.
and we want a good picture, we want an updated picture for its own sake. So,
Mhm.
but I think, yeah, just to kind of compare like situations, smaller, more rural communities, under 10%, similar to Dayton, I would say many of them work with Serped or
Right.
anyone,
Like
to, a consultant or something, to pursue a housing production plan and
Mm-hmm.
certify it.
There's a lot of information here. And you guys done a great job. Don't, I have a lot of questions.
That's okay, we're
But I
here to
don't want
answer
to
them,
dominate,
yeah.
so Mark, what do you have?
Could you go over the local adoption procedure again?
Of course, yes. So there are a couple ways you can do this, and we kind of have like the slightly longer but recommended route, and then we have the shorter and probably more standard route. Typically, what we like to recommend is that once both boards have seen it and feel comfortable, but if there are edits, like for example, we know we're going to have some edits that we want to incorporate from that planning board memorandum just to more clearly articulate some of the comments that were in it and make sure that everything has been addressed. You folks can do a couple of things. You can either, contingently adopt it on the basis that we incorporate those edits to your satisfaction. You can wait and see an updated version and choose to adopt it. And then again, kind of getting at what I was alluding to earlier, this optional but slightly longer process is we want to make this, the least arduous that it could be for you folks. So what we like to do with our housing production plans is almost get them pre-reviewed by the state, where we ship it off to them and we say, hey, we think we've addressed everything as required in the regulations. Can you just ensure that we've met that and it's satisfactory so that, the town doesn't have to go back and adopt it twice if for some reason they ship it back with edits.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an optional step, but we like to recommend it because, again, I think it really makes the process a little bit more bulletproof so that, again, you folks come and you have a nice final HPP that you feel good about and that the state is going to say yes to, and then you can choose to adopt it at that time. Or again, if for some reason, tomorrow you decide, I really don't want to locally adopt this, that is totally fine with us. We're, I'm not going to lose sleep and not hurt. It's truly up to you folks what you feel comfortable with. But in terms of the procedures, that's usually how we like to do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Of course.
Jeff, are you willing to give the planning board's feedback? Could you?
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, if you don't mind, I just you have the memo in your packet. I'm not gonna read it cover to cover. I do want to hit some highlights. And first, I want to say thank you to the Serpent members. I'm sorry to get is it Taylor and Robert?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, Robert, you're working with us on some other work. I'm also a Serpent commissioner, but I wanted to be there tonight, but I wasn't feeling well, so I told Ralph it'd be best if I just did this remotely. So I apologize. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
You can hear you well.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so first I want to say I don't envy Serpent putting this together.
Thank you.
Because I realized quickly as I'm criticizing your small sample set, I find it very difficult having served on multiple committees and boards and looking at that room right now, knowing that we have a town of 3,000 homes and there's maybe 6 people in the room in the audience. So I get it. I know it's hard to get people to respond. I'm also very concerned that out of the 202 responses, which is equivalent to, it's less than 10%. There's 8,000 residents, but as the selectman pointed out, it's actually much less, households, more on the order of 3,000. So it is less than 10%, but the concern that I had was of those responses, how many of those were actually substantive. And the reason I say that is a lot of these responses are pretty inappropriate. And I don't know if the selectmen have had a chance to go through and actually read these responses. I don't know if you should. I don't think you'd be happy with the responses. And some of them were pretty inappropriate and vulgar and unnecessary. And I think a lot of that came from, like you said, it wound up on social media and the mob mentality took over. But one thing I will say is I didn't even know this housing production plan was happening until after it happened, and I was asked to comment on it. So I don't know the right way to get the word out. I wish I had a good answer, and like I said, I don't envy you because that's very, very hard. So I wasn't hearing you talk. I realized you did what you could. I don't know what the strategy was for outreach, but you got my comments, so I don't want to dwell on that. I was concerned about underrepresentation of people, but it's my comments. I get concerned when we talk about adopting a plan where I didn't feel after I read the whole thing that I really knew what the plan was, because it seemed after reading through all the comments and you went through and found a thread. I think maybe you may have just gone through and printed them and put all the ones that don't say anything on one side. And when you got done, you got some consistent responses, and you went through and threaded it all together. But it wasn't clear because all of your responses were actually flat. Some people thought everything, you could have easily taken all those survey results and put them in different buckets, and you wouldn't see any substantial statistical representation of what the majority of people thought would be a good idea. So I think your number is much less than 85%. 85. Excuse me. You mentioned 85% as a stat goal before. I think your number is much lower when you start looking at the ones you actually could do something with. So that was one of my concerns. The biggest thing I want to see happening, I'd love to see happening, is I put it as number one, and that is strategy two. We need to do a better job of educating the public in general. Biggest part there is like to dispel housing myths, right? That's a huge problem. And in my short time on the Trails Committee, I went to a number of different talks around the area. The one that I found the most interesting was one about the Bristol Bike Path. If you don't know the history of the Bristol Bike Path, there's a reason why this ties directly to housing, I think, in my mind, because folks have this idea in their head what will happen if a bike path comes through their town, and they're concerned that people are going to start taking the televisions out of their living rooms and carrying them in on wagons. And it took the Bristol Bike Path, close to 20 years to dispel all those doubts, and now you see the success that they've become, and people want to live next to the bike path. All that being said, people look at housing, 40Bs, and the fact that we're at 5%, we got to get to 10%. They see that as a really negative thing, and that's what I think you got in general from all the surveys that you had. Is a lot of people have this idea in their head of what that could do to the town of Dayton, and a lot of folks feel very negatively that we're going in that direction. Unfortunately, we're mandated to get to this 10% number, so we have to figure out how to get there. But I think a big part, and I'll leave it there, is I think strategy two needs to be number one. So I'll turn it over to back to the room.
Thank you, Jeff.
Respond to just we read through the memo, of course, too, and we completely understand the sentiment of the comments, and we felt that they were appropriate and on point. So we really appreciate when folks such as yourself engage with the plan, especially when it's to provide constructive criticism like this and try to nudge, move the needle in the direction that you want to see for your town. It's really at the heart of why we write them. So thank you for really taking a dive into the plan and doing that. And to the statistical point too, just to the 85%, what Taylor mentioned is a confidence interval, which is just like if you take the sample size, statistically they'll give you that. That's why we said we would just, maybe it's nitpicking, maybe it's just like being a little academic, I apologize, but it's not like, that's why we use that coverage word, because the number makes sense, but there are plenty of times where like you could get a good number and not get a sample of the general population. Like a hypothetical.
I'm a numbers guy, so I love numbers.
Yeah.
A hypothetical of this would be like if you went to the park on a really busy day where there's a festival at the park and you ask everyone what they think of parks and you get overwhelmingly positive responses, it's probably because everyone you asked is at the park. And like ours is a little more convoluted because it's not that simplistic, but the internet and the Facebook aspect of it could have produced that kind of effect in our survey is what I would suspect.
Yeah. I mean, just to add to that too, and again, like I don't know that it necessarily solves the problem or whatnot, but again, I just want to like commiserate and I really do appreciate your comments because we like I said, we do struggle with this where these kind of voluntary surveys, the uptake is, again, it's voluntary. It's dependent on whether or not someone has interest in the topic, be that positive or negative sentiment around it. And to Rob's point earlier, again, it's so hard to get that truly representative sample size. And so again, my hope is that through this plan, we have done our best to your point and tried to tease something out. And again, maybe this is a representative sample, in which case, again, maybe the appetite is just not there, and that's okay. We want to make a plan for you folks that still is actionable, even if that is not focused or centered on production. We, have tried to directionally take our housing production plans to be focused not just on, affordable housing production, but also market rate and programmatic changes. So, it's not, again, unheard of or something that we felt was, I think we ultimately, I think, are hopefully satisfied with it. But again, I appreciate the sentiment, and I do agree. And I always wish we could reach more people. There's nothing more I can really add.
Yeah, and to take it in the other direction, of course, the one thing you don't want to do is you get a result on a survey that doesn't, express a positive sentiment towards
Right.
housing or a clear sentiment
Right.
and say, well, we're not using that.
Right.
We are going to use the feedback we
Right.
get on a plan because that's
It's our job.
it's the ethical way
ultimately.
to approach a planning
Yeah.
project. So that is our,
Yeah.
above all else, our obligation
Right.
to accurately describe the sentiment we heard from town
Right.
on this. I can say, at the tabling events or at the Strawberry Fest or at the Cow Chip, and
Yeah.
we did hear people that were excited about certain housing ideas.
Mhm.
And so we know there are some people in town that have certain
Feel that
interests
way.
in certain directions too. So we know it's not every person feels this way.
Right.
We're going to go with the data points that we get.
And I mean, something I want to add to that, again, this is not unique to Dayton. I know there was a comment in the memorandum about the kind of contradictory nature of folks where we pose 2 questions usually, again, or at least a section that is about, what type of housing related strategies would you support in town? And then prior to that, we pose a question, are you concerned about housing affordability in town? And again, it's not uncommon, and Dayton is not unique in the fact that a lot of folks are always concerned, but the sentiment around actually implementing strategies to address that varies a lot more. It just tends to happen where I think folks are concerned about, can I afford to live here? Can I afford to pay my taxes? Can my children afford to buy a home here? But then also not really sure directionally how you address that, or aren't necessarily comfortable with the kind of mainstream strategies. So again, to your point, it probably is beneficial to do some more engagement and to focus on some of these more bite-sized kind of, again, like incremental changes that start to kind of again, like move the needle. I feel like we're saying that a lot. Thread the needle, move the needle. Get towards, again, a common understanding and consensus. And a lot of that is dispelling myths and talking about things that folks are comfortable with certain trade-offs or not, and where could we do something that we think is impactful or not. I'm just trying to get at the fact that it is super complicated, and at least in this plan, I think to Rob's point, we didn't want to misrepresent what we heard, again, whether it was positive or negative. I don't think that, again, ethically that's, it's just not, we have to take what we got at face value, for better or for worse.
You won't get anywhere doing it either
Right.
because you'll have a plan that no one in the town supports.
Right.
So even if some of this may be, not directionally satisfactory sometimes, at least it represents what we've heard out there.
Mhm.
And
It's
and I
honest.
think
Yeah.
if we would call it maybe a baby step forward,
Mhm.
it's better than what looks like a big step forward, and then you take 2-3 steps back because
Right.
someone is like, I took the survey and I don't feel like that's what I said or whatever,
Right. Right.
So
Completely agree.
Seems the majority of the survey was taxes are too high.
It's everywhere.
we
We hear that a lot.
quite a
Yeah.
bit, yeah.
We hear a lot.
Not that the housing plan has anything to do with that, in a roundabout way, I guess, if
Yeah.
we had more houses, and technically you think that the taxes would be spread out so that people wouldn't have to pay as much. But, of course, with that comes families and schools, and so it doesn't necessarily
Sophisticated
happen.
analysis
Yeah.
we did not do in this plan
Yeah.
of what your
Right.
breaking points are or whatever.
Right.
But it is completely true. And it's not, again, not unique to Dayton. We hear a lot of similar sentiments across all of our communities. So again, we have 27 communities, and they're all vastly different in their own ways, but there are common themes across all of them. Again, a general concern about affordability, a concern about tax rates, and housing stability and whatnot. It's just, again, what is going to make sense for your community
Right.
going forward to address that.
There's nothing in this plan that's binding, right? It's just that it's a plan, and it's goal setting, and it's really starts the discussion on where we want to go in the next 5 years, right? So that's, you guys did your research, you did your survey, you compiled it here, and this will get submitted to the state. But is there anything in here that we are
Lock you
bound
into
to?
something.
Right.
I have never encountered something of that nature. Maybe the most affirmative statement you make is and this is something that I think we have a lot of discussion with communities about, again, not unique to Dayton, is that last strategy that discusses, where in town would you support either redevelopment, adaptive reuse, a friendly 40B work, et cetera. We get a lot of questions about that. And ultimately that, again, not binding, no one's gonna come knocking on your door and being like, did you take interclass and do anything with it or whatnot? But it, again, it directionally aligns you in the sense you as in the town, where say a developer does come and is interested in doing something in town, and say you have a certified housing production plan and you wanna do something with the site and you've outlined it here, again, it can kind of start to help you navigate certain, a trajectory that makes sense for town. But, beyond, again, it's a policy instrument to your point, and it's really meant to be, that carrot incentive where it's like you adopt this and then you get certification, which is really the big regulatory teeth that are associated with the plan. Yeah, go ahead, of course.
Also, I think if we were to break this down into some of the components and the recommendations, that last one that you mentioned, Taylor, is really, I think, from the Commonwealth's perspective, the major obligation for the plan. If we wanted to write the most minimal plan that we could, you would have 2 sites selected for a potential 40B, typically one town-owned and one privately owned. And the community's signaling of willingness to look at those 2 sites is exactly what Mr. Katako said. I think in the early part of this discussion, setting the stage for us, is it shows that, okay, we're planning for housing, and this is how we're planning for housing. We're under 10%. And if a 40B were to come across our desk, here are 2 priority sites that we've hypothetically acknowledged that we would kind of direct development in a hypothetical sense, not a binding sense to my knowledge.
Right, no, yeah.
So it's the town or community showing their willingness for planning in that regard. That's the closest thing to an obligation. But again, it's really just signaling like
Preference.
if a 40B were to come across our desk and we have the safe harbor, this is the approach we would signal to developers that we would like to take. But if something were to come up on the site, to my knowledge, and I don't have like historical instances on my mind or anything, I could imagine there could be many scenarios where a community would be like, oh yeah, I know we put that on our plan, but this has happened in the time since, so we can't meet that up, meet that goal we set for ourselves or something like that.
How long-
I'm sorry.
No.
One more question, if you don't mind. Are you going to make any changes based on the planning boards?
Yes, so we would, based on the memorandum, we just want to go back and make that clarifying language, like add it, make it super clear. So I went today, I was going line by line to make sure that we had language kind of queued up that as long as you folks are comfortable with us moving forward and doing that, we just go in and add it, and then it comes back across, folks' desks for review again. So that would be, the changes would be based on that memorandum. Yeah, otherwise I don't.
Or anything we hear tonight.
Right, exactly.
And Jeff mentioned that goal number 2 in your plan should be goal 1. Is that?
Yeah, we
what-
can certainly, we can rearrange however is most appropriate.
Okay. That's my only other question.
What's the timeline for state approval?
So it's a little squishy. That's probably not a super satisfactory answer. The state, I'm trying to remember our last plan that we did, how long to make it clear to you, this is optional, but just something we recommend. I don't think it was longer. It's usually 1 to 2 months.
That's all?
Yeah. Like you're not going to be in like 2027 being like, have they reviewed our plan? Like
Right,
it'll
okay.
happen. Yeah.
And the reason for that approach, I think, is by the time everybody's kind of standing behind us on the town side, we kind of have that pre-approval, the informal approval from the Commonwealth. So someone on Dayton's end doesn't say, I stand behind this, and then we got to change it. And they go, well, I stood behind that, but I stand behind this again with the changes. It's just
Streamlines.
a way to keep everybody informed with as few steps as possible.
So what happens from here?
So if you folks, again, this is the procedure we recommend, and I'll leave it to you folks on how you'd like to proceed. We would incorporate those edits from the planning board memorandum.
Yeah.
You folks can review those and make sure that, again, they have satisfied what you would like to see changed based on that memorandum. Then we bring it to the state. It's just an email that we send out. We say, hey, working with the town of Dayton, here's their final draft housing production plan. Can you just give it a quick look? Let us know if you have any edits. And 95% of the time, if they have edits, they're very minor. It's like, can you add 1 data point on age trends over time? Or can you add 1 extra sentence on the infrastructure? Or can you just like clarify this 1 data point on seasonal vacancies? Like they're very minor in nature. and more often just, purely for informational sake. That we've never been asked to like restructure our plans or anything. And we've been working with the two folks who review HPPs at the state for, probably 5+ years now. It's been the same folks, and
They
they're
probably submitted, 15, 20 plans to them during that time?
It's over 10 easily. So we have a good rapport with them. And I know the last plan that we submitted, I think the turnaround was faster than I remember in the past. So I think that they're pretty familiar with kind of the way we structure HPPs at this point. And again, a lot of the times it's just like, can you add a data point? After that, it comes back to you folks, and then you formally adopt it. The planning board adopts it. The board of selectmen adopts it. We have draft letter templates that we can provide to you folks that essentially are just like, hey, on X date, the planning board voted, X to Y to adopt this. And on this date, the board of selectmen voted to adopt the plan on X to Y. That gets submitted to the state, and then it's in their hands. And eventually you get a letter that says, hey, as of the day you submitted this plan for our review, it is approved. Your 5-year lifespan has begun. You have an approved HPP, and then you're good for the next 5 years.
The planning board has some great comments, and thank you, Jeff. It was an interesting read. The people who review, nobody's going to know Dayton. So how do you overcome the fact that they're going to treat us like any other town when every town is unique?
Right. I mean, the kind of the nature of the feedback when it comes to the actual approval process is not often around the context of the community. And I don't mean that to sound cold, it's just true.
Okay.
I think a lot of the times the state focuses on, does this housing production plan meet the regulatory requirements? And, oftentimes they'll be like, we appreciate the nuance that's in this plan. I know they read it front to back. So, how much we want to come up front and say things, we certainly can when we send it along. And we do try and provide some context where we feel it's appropriate. But I mean, EOHLC has reviewed very small community HPPs that we've done to, very large suburban HPPs that we've done. So I think they've seen the breadth of our region. Again, to your point, no one will ever know Dayton like you folks do. Even we can't. So we can make as much context as you folks feel appropriate clear when we send that along. But the nature of their reviews, again, is largely a regulatory lens.
Okay.
The type of comment that would require substantive change is, I think, a community that eschews the responsibility of providing 40B sites, or we've had them come back where a community objects strongly to having a barrier section. Those kinds of things. And if we felt that was at risk here, we would talk about it. That's usually how it's gone on plans where that kind of thing has happened. Right. I can't promise we're not going to get any comments or something won't surprise us, or that there's, but I mean, I don't want to speak for you, Taylor, but I suspect this plan should go through without major edits.
I anticipate the same thing. And of course, if we always tell communities too, if in the event for some reason the state comes back and, again, in the unlikely scenario, they were like, we want you to rework the entire barrier section, the entire needs assessment, which again, I think is a very unlikely outcome. Anytime they come with truly substantive changes, which again, in my experience writing these over the past now 7 years I've been at Serpent, has not happened. But if it does, we come to you folks and say, are you comfortable with this? Do you want us to proceed with this? Right. Because ultimately, again, this is your policy document that we are, just aiding in the production of. And so if something comes across our desk that the state requests that you feel is fundamentally against what you folks would like to see in the plan or whatnot, we don't want to write a plan that you folks aren't comfortable with. So we navigate that at that time. But again, I intuitively, and to Rob's point, don't foresee major changes. I foresee them asking for a data point if they, they feel like it's necessary.
They may also have questions on some of the survey data.
Right.
They want clarifications on our end. I don't think they'd ask us to rerun the survey.
Right.
They'd be like, can you explain this better?
Yeah.
That's what I would expect.
It's almost always clarifying in nature. So.
Hey, Jeff, in your comments, were they a survey from your board?
You mean Did our board take the survey?
No, not, did you take the survey, your comments in your memorandum?
No, sorry, I need to be clear, this is me reviewing this.
Okay.
This is not the planning board, this is from me as a member of the planning board. I
Okay,
apologize. That
sure.
wasn't clear. Yeah, this went out to everybody on the board. Oh, it actually went out to the entire town,
Right.
asking for comment. And I sat there and looked at it on my inbox for a while and thought, wow, that's a big report. Eventually I got to it, but no, this is for me.
Okay,
Apologies.
thanks, Mark, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm good. What's your pleasure?
Well, I think we have to move forward. I know we have to move forward. And obviously we can't adopt a plan because there's no final plan. So what is it that you want from us this evening?
If there are any additional comments or questions that you have, we're here to answer them tonight. Otherwise, the edits that we're going to incorporate are purely from that planning
From the
board
planning board.
memorandum,
Right.
if you folks are comfortable with that. If there's
I'm
any-
comfortable with it. I mean, some of it I didn't understand until I read it again,
Sure,
and a third time.
I've been there. I hear it.
But I think my opinion is to move forward.
I agree with
We
you.
need a plan.
Yes.
There's been a lot of work already established here, and I'm not a professional, other than knowing that the state's gonna require it at some point, and you have to meet that threshold, one. And two, I think every town and community is gonna be required to have some kind of housing plan, at some point in the future, not just a suggestion.
I agree. Everyone has had a chance to comment at this point. I'm comfortable with Serpent incorporating Jeff's comments into their plan and moving forward as well.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So Ralph, what do you want
So,
to,
you know, just, no need to act, just to sort
Yes.
of, just to say,
go forward?
go forward.
Okay.
Are you okay with that?
That's totally fine with us. And then, so we can incorporate those edits. Again, we've kind of already worked behind the scenes to prepare to incorporate those edits, so I don't anticipate it taking a while. We'll bring it back to your folks' desk again, and just with everyone's blessing that they feel good about it, we will send it to the state for their pre-review, and then we'll communicate with you, Ralph, once we hear feedback from them, and we'll summarize the feedback that they give us either way, again, whether it's just like they just wanted one data point or they want us to explain this more. And then so long as, again, everyone here feels comfortable with what they would like, if anything, we incorporate that, and then it comes back to you folks.
Okay.
Thank you for your hard work on behalf of the town of Dayton.
If I may, Chair, just want to let you know, the next planning board meeting is August 19th. I don't know if you want us to do another review of this, or they can just incorporate it, you can go through it and walk away. I don't want to hold it up any longer, but it's not necessary.
I mean, it's up to you. It's your board whether you think you should review it one more time.
It's our board.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. Well, you represent the board.
I for one think we should, when you do your comments, we should formally act on it on the Board of Selectmen's behalf to authorize you to send it up.
Yes, that sounds fine.
So I don't know about the planning board, but that's how I feel for us.
Sure.
Sure.
Sounds good to us.
Great.
Here to support. Thank you.
All right.
Good job. Thank you so
We
much.
appreciate it. Thanks, folks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and if anything else comes up, please, you have our email. I know Ralph does. Let us know. We're happy to address it.
Okay.
So,
Fantastic.
thank you, folks. Have a good night.
You
Appreciate it.
too. All right. Next, we have Tom Ferry, our highway superintendent, to discuss the resignation of Jeff Pimentel and the posting of a operator class 1 position. Hey, Tom. Good. How are you?
So you both had the letter. I guess customary that we do not read that in this meeting. It's effective the 18th. We need to fill that position ASAP, not just because of the workload, but it's coming quickly, so.
Sure.
We need to train someone on the streets and stuff like that. We gotta get expedited on this.
I know it's a strong word, but when I saw that Jeff Pimentel was resigning, I felt devastated for the town. I think it's a huge loss, and I wish him the best on his future endeavors. And I sincerely and genuinely thank you, Jeff, for your service to the town of Dayton. And I fully support posting the operator class 1 position ASAP.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we accept the resignation of Jeff Pimentel.
I will step down in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
And I make the motion to post the job description for the operator class 1 position.
I will step down in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's any comments also, the meeting has very is.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank you. Thanks for being here. All right, announcements.
The Dayton Lions Club Food Bank will be held next on Saturday, July 18th of 2026, located at the Town Hall, 979 Somerset Ave, at the lower level. That's it for announcements.
That was really good.
Yeah, I did such a well.
That was nice.
Good job.
Is there any public input this evening? To school art.
So I said I'd be back because August the 1st and 2nd is a PMC bike ride. And I heard from my team, and so I have a little bit of information here. So they will be coming through Dayton on August the 1st. The big break of the day is at Dayton Rehoboth. Anyone who wishes to volunteer services just has to get in touch with the PMC if they'd like to work at the high school or wherever. Nicole Mello volunteered as a nurse a few times. It's the same route through Dayton, High School to Horton Street, William Street, Center Street, over the bridge. There was a change in the actual entire ride this year. They used to start in Sturbridge. I guess from now on, they're going to start at the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester. I don't really know why they shortened it. It's 9 miles shorter, but it's actually 800 feet reduction in vertical climb if you're riding a bike. So I don't know if that means they're going to be coming through Dayton a little earlier, but if people line up along the streets and wave and clap and support them any way they can. The goal this year is $79 million. Last year they raised $78 million, and I think they had, their target last year was either 75 or 76, so they well exceeded it. So this year they just upped it by $1 million. So any residents that usually are out there, or if you have somebody you want to remember, it means a great deal to the riders to see people along the route. And my team always comments about the reception they get when they come through Dayton. So I'm usually at the Aggie School, and there's a lot of people that stop down there. But in any case, August 1st, and hope we have a good turn, and hope we have good weather, not 100 degrees, but not pouring rain either. Okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I feel like you were just here yesterday discussing this last year. Time goes by fast.
And I will say this. Every year, when I send a contribution to my team captain, he maintains a list of people. And my list, I'm happy to say, the list is 3 columns. The first column is people who have passed from cancer. The middle column is people who are under treatment. And the third column are those who are cured. I had no entries for the first column, and I actually moved some people from the second column into the third column, which is the cured, and that column is getting longer.
Fantastic. That's beautiful. Is there any other public inputs? All right, moving on. Selectmen's reports? No. I don't really have any reports. The school building committee did meet on Monday, and there's a survey online that you can take. And the superintendent and the team will be at a meeting in August, our last meeting in August. So.
Okay. Is the survey on the school website or the town website?
It's on the school website, the town website, our social media page.
Okay.
It's at some local places like Arujo's, I believe. You can get it in paper form.
Yeah.
So it's the 11th?
Okay.
The,
So it's not live yet.
No. So they're gonna have paper copies for anybody who cannot do it electronically. There are 4 locations. I know 3 of them. One of them is Town Hall, Library, Arugio's,
Yeah.
Council on Aging,
I believe so, yes.
Council on Aging. So anybody.
Is it anonymous, I take it?
So we look forward to a good update from them in August.
Yeah, I bet you we get a lot of responses.
Yes.
More than 200.
More than
203. Town administrator report.
Just an update. I've continued conversations with my counterpart in Berkeley. We're still hammering out some of the details with the shared position of the animal control officer. We are planning on having another joint meeting at the beginning of August. So I'll keep you this board informed.
It's quiet this time of year.
It is.
Review, discuss, act, ratification of the building commissioner contract. We've already kind of discussed that.
I make a motion to ratify the contract.
I will step down second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Recommendation to appoint Jason Lawrence as a voting member to the Conservation Commission. Is Jason here this evening? Okay. No.
I make a motion to table.
I will step down second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Home rule petition impact fees. So that was passed at town meeting.
That was passed at town meeting. Article 24 was passed as we were becoming familiar with the process. It requires a letter from the chairman of the board and a certified vote, and we'll pass that on to Senator Duma's office so we could so the legislation can take it up.
It's very exciting.
Yeah. Did you write the letter?
No, because my name's spelled wrong.
I was wondering why.
But that's okay.
Did I spell it? Oh.
It's okay. You
Okay.
can get my signature pretty easy on another date. So,
Sorry.
Okay. I make a motion to adopt the home rule petition impact fees.
I will step down in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. We have a request from Bristol Plymouth Regional Technical High School to use the town seal.
Again, the town clerk is in charge of the town seal, but under Mass General Law, they could distribute a seal within the borders of the town of Dayton, and use of it outside of it would require the approval of the selectmen. The selectmen, the ribbon cutting for BP is July 22nd, so they're looking to put that on. Invitations went out. I'll send it out again to the board.
You know what time?
During the day, I think 12 o'clock.
Okay. No big deal. So I make the motion to allow them to use the town seal.
Step down in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Warrants.
Okay, we have several of them. These are the warrants paid by June 30th, 2026. 53A-26, $129,216.82. 53B-26, $181,130.03. 53C-26, $137.13. 1B-27, $1,261,064.33. Then the warrants paid by July 9th, 2026. 54A-26, $101,252.30. 54B-26, $72,348.85. 54C-26, $129,855.96. 2A-27, $85,488.92. 2B-27, $68,215.44. And finally, 2C-27, $191,383.57.
All right, let's step down in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. So we have correspondence. We have a letter from Laura Armstrong for some donations. So she says, we inform you that the Dayton Council on Aging has received the following donations for unrestricted use. $30 from an anonymous donor and $50 from Dennis McGee of Dayton, Mass. As usual, all donations are turned over to the town accountant and deposited in the Council on Aging gift account. Do you know if she needs a motion to accept the donations?
Just an acknowledgement.
Okay, very good. And next we have Muddy Cove Mylar for the Board of Selectmen signature.
Again, this was in association with the actions taken at annual town meeting. As a result of the Pleasant Street Bridge project, Muddy Cove, some construction work is being done on Muddy Cove, and it is private street. Cannot do upgrades on a private street. It was accepted at town meeting, so we need to get it registered at the Bristol County Registry of Deeds, Planning Board sign. Next is the Selectmen have the Mylar to sign it, town clerk, and then we send it out to get registered. So.
Okay. I just wanted to back up on the donations and thank the folks who donated and helps the Council on Aging continue serving our town. Minutes.
Approval of the Board of Selectmen's regular session meeting minutes for May 13th, 2026. Meeting minutes of May 27th, 2026, and meeting minutes of June 3rd, 2026.
All right, I'll stop down a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. This is our last public input tonight. Is there anyone for public input?
Hi,
Yes, sir.
should I approach
Yes.
you? Thank you, podium. Fran Cedrone, Lincoln Avenue, North Dayton. I did send a email, and I think Karen got it. I'm sure she shared it with you. I know she shared it with Mr. Ferry. I have some concerns about speeding on Lincoln Avenue in North Dayton, and I'd like some stop signs put up with signage to go with it that says Lincoln Avenue is a neighborhood. Please respect the speed limit. This stop sign is here to reduce speed, or something to that effect. It doesn't have to be written exactly like that. But I would like them in a couple places for no other reason than people use it for a shortcut, and the speeders are crazy. It's not just because I'm old now. It would be worse, actually, if there was kids. You know? It's a problem, but I know the town has jurisdiction over stop signs. You don't have to go to the state and go beg them, like with a stoplight, which I know people don't like either in town because they want it to be a one-horse town. But
What we can do is get a recommendation from the police department and highway superintendent, and in a future meeting, the Board of Selectmen can discuss it. And that would be a great time if you have any neighbors who feel the same way. Come back, talk about it in public input, and the board can look at the recommendations and discuss it
well, that
at a
sounds
future
great.
meeting.
That
Yes.
sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome. Very good. So we will make sure to work on that. Is there any other public input? Alrighty, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Alright, I'll second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Alrighty, we are now adjourned.